Good morning, everyone. So it's 31st of January, right about 9:48 on the eastern side. So today we're going to talk about a subject that's not talked about often, is kind of steeped in mystique and a lot of fear, and for good reason. So this definitely comes with a warning label. Truly, I've been swaying if I should even do this one, but for the sake of it reaching the intended, and for an explanation to further your knowledge banks, I think it was like a 60% instead of like a dead even 50-50. So we'll give it a whirl. Today we're going to be discussing demons and who are they, what are they, how are they used, how are they used for good, right? You might say, well, how can a demon do anything good? Well, it's like everything else. There's a purpose, and even though sometimes the original purpose is defiled, it still can be purposed for good. Like, that's kind of the idea, right? Imagine, if you have this huge barn full of stuff, not everything is going to be purposed right for your nice house, but on the occasion, you need to go borrow something here and there, right? And it's going to serve its purpose. So it's essentially purposing everything in an act of creation. So, um, when casting out demons from people, before we go into that, let's go through a checklist kind of thing. Um, Most people that claim they're possessed by demons are actually not possessed by demons. They're possessed by a high inflated ego. They have attention seeking needs. They're trying to, instill fear in others, or they're trying to explain, um, I don't even want to say phenomena, but like I say, that's just, most people are not. When you encounter someone who genuinely is, right, possessed or touched or under the influence of a legitimate demonic power, to a normal, average, everyday person, number one, the demon actually does not want you to know that it's there. So a lot of your movies and stuff portray it, right, as this, cynical madman or madwoman, right? They're going through these bits and bouts. And yes, that part's true, but that typically comes at the end of life of that person. And it's, kind of like, if you see a fish dying, right? It's going to like kind of start acting funny. It's going to swim upside down, right? It's going to try to do everything it can to breathe. Same thing kind of with a demon, right? When the body is about to be expired, right? It starts to get squirmy and can even be, you know, well, I think you get the picture. Um, so one of the first things is, as an individual, you do not want to play with that. You don't want to, be around those individuals. But if you are a high priest, if you are clean and righteous, if you have a very strong mind, a very strong heart, you've had your rebirth, you're tight within the family, you actively use the Ruach, the correct names, like you got all these things in your checklist. And I'll tell you what you do is, if you go and try to cast a demon using fake names, the demon may even play along with you just to get you out of the way. So it'd be like coming to the sick patient, right? Imagine, the kid who says, "Oh, my knee hurts," and then the doctor comes in and is like, I know you really don't want surgery on the knee, so I'm just gonna wrap a bandage in it. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, yeah, I'll be a good boy. Don't come at me with that knife, right? I'm gonna cut it out. Demons do that same thing, right? So when you're approaching people, I mean, again, I'm not saying this like is happening on a daily basis, but I'm saying if you were to approach a legitimate demon and you're trying to cast out using Jesus or Jehovah or whatever infinite names you people have conjured up at this point, you're going to get laughed at by the demon. Because literally how Solomon was turned humiliated because he gave up, essentially his connection with spirit for a sin, right? Sex. So not only was he mocked by me, by the angels, but then also by demonium because stupidness, right? So same thing. It's also why in your media, when they do portray it and they're using those names, let's remember, guys, the true holy name is fire. That's why you people are not walking around using the true name because most of you would be dead. So you're free and welcome to obliterate the names you already have, right? Making your stupid memes, using the false Christ names and all this junk. Like in the real scheme of things, you guys are a laughing stock. So continue to be a laughing stock. For those that are serious, the name. Like that's another thing, right? You got to get past that hurdle because I don't care if you are at 99%. If you don't know my name, I don't give a crap. I don't want to know you. Like, how disrespectful are you? Again, you know, the service worker entered my house the other day and his name literally was Jose and I couldn't say his name right or I called him Josie or I called, what's up, Padre? Oh man, well, you are Spanish. I can't call you Padre. Do you understand how that looks when you're talking about developing a relationship with me? It's pretty stupid, right? That's what I mean. So you guys don't you if you can't get the name in your mouth, then you might want to start looking at yourself for some demon infestations. Um, because that's the thing, right? I told you if you are inhabited by a demonic spirit or you're being covered by demonic spirits, then they're not going to allow you to say the name. They're not going to let you learn the name. That's my like tried and true three-pronged approach. What's the best way to get rid of cancer? You cut it right out, right? Just get it out of there. And um, the only true way, right, to actually get rid of demons, you got to cast them, but then you can't just cast them because that would be like you're blowing. You got to make sure that there's a destination, right? So when Yeshua sent demons into the fowl and then the fowl went over the cliff and into the water, right? That's because he possessed me. He possessed my spirit in him, right? So just like Yeshua was his own man, he had his own, you know, he had his own things he liked, things he didn't like, right? But in him, right, I'm just sitting there right beside him, right? And just like now, I am in me, but just like I am, right? I have my own preferences. I like chocolate. I like chocolate covered peanuts at night and a glass of chocolate milk. Like that's my snack. That's not, for simplistic terms, let's say that's not my brother Yeshua's preference, right? And just like Yeshua, right, was a man born in or born with the Holy Spirit, right? The spirit of our Father, to keep it simple. So Yeshua was a human born with the spirit of our Father. I am angel bound, so I am Malak Yahweh, right? So I possess the powers of heaven on earth, and I am a direct representation of my Father created in heaven. And then again, how do you not tick off the Holy Family? Especially when our entire theology is about the one true God. Well, that's our name. So when you're using the proper names, you're actually covering kind of the whole family. So you're giving the praise and honor in all the areas that is required, and you're not essentially threatening to withhold glory, right, from salvation, nor are you withholding glory from deliverance, nor are you denying glory from existence of I am in its entirety. So again, if you can't get that or grasp that, then you might as well just pack your shit, go home, and go build a Lego kit. Like I really don't care at this point. we're getting pretty deep into this stuff, and I really need to start progressing. And I can't try to keep backpedaling to pacify simple-minded people. Like, I know that's not what a lot of you want to hear, and I've literally heard it, and I have weighed my checks and balances on so many preachers that have smugly said how less you are and how incapable you are of rising to the occasion that I have set forth. If you are a person under their flock, I highly, strongly suggest you go find a Cohen or a Pastor Peter, um, you know, someone from one of the ministries that I've brought up, but you legitimately need to get out from under those people. This is definitely an access system, and you need to be able to operate within that. Um, so, first off, when it comes to casting demons, let's just fast forward to, let's say you have a true blue real demon, and let's say the individual is going to be actually doing the casting, right? So your number one thing is speak to the individual, have a family member that can give you kind of a hidden list of things of what the person is, who they were. So what this would look like, let's say Bob is our possessed person, and his wife Clara, let's say, is who called me. And Clara says, hey, yeah, I have my husband Bob. He's acting strange. Um, she suspects, some kind of demonic activity. And I'd say, okay, well, what gives you that idea, right? Why isn't it Bob is just overworked and he needs a vacation versus a demon? So if she's saying we're having like phenomena happening in the house, Bob's going in and out of trances, or things of like not good continue to happen, right? So there's a pattern. There's going to be an established pattern, and it's gonna fall within a category of sin. So never are you gonna find the fire without smoke, right? So that's what I mean. You're gonna find that trail of sin. So when you can pinpoint that trail of sin, then you can start narrowing it down to who the possible demon could be. But then you go in, you want to question your person, but you don't want to do it in an intimidating way. So you don't show up in black priest garbs with a giant crucifix and a Bible and like get out of the movies. Instead, you could simply have coffee out in the public and have a cordial conversation with Bob. Remember, these guys are, if they're a real demon, they're going to pretty much behave in public. So that's your safest bet, because they don't want to be cast out. And if they have an idea of your intentions, and they probably do, then they're really going to clean it up. On the other end, if the individual starts getting all, woo, right, in the middle of the Waffle House, there's a great chance that he's not demon possessed. He could be mentally ill. He could be under stress. There could be other underlying reasons. I would personally then refer to him to a clinician, or if you want to do it purely by the Holy Spirit and prayer, hope his wife Clara, is strong in that suit, and then we're just gonna bathe him in holiness and righteousness and get him back on track. If it is not that, and it is a legitimate demon, sit at that Waffle House and begin asking those questions. Favorite color, favorite food, watch how he eats. And then you're going to kind of cross-reference these things with Miss Clara, right, his wife. And these are fictitious people, by the way. I'm just making them up for the example. So let's say that some of the facts aren't ironing out, right? Clara says, yeah, we got married on a cruise, in Belize in this year. And I ask, privately, right? Well, what was the highlight of that trip? Or I'm trying to probe things of a positive, good, righteous nature that for a husband and wife of 30 years, right? These are staples that they would know. So then I bring up, okay, so Bob, tell me, how did you and your wife meet? Oh, you met there, and you're cross-examining. He's not really the wiser. Like, he may understand or have an idea, but you're trying to do this in like a normal way. So then once you've made let's say you've made your case, right, and then you can say unequivocally, right, you've made your carnal case, And you need to go into spirit. You need to pray about these things. You need to get, contact the Ruach, me, and then let that cycle begin. From that point on, if you've established a case, you're dealing with demonium, then your next step is ensure that you're no sin. Because if you have a sin or you have anything that's dirty in the closet, any skeletons in the closet, a real demon is going to find it and they're going to drag it out. They're going to rain hell down on you if you are in any way dirty. So it would literally do you no good. And then the thing is, you don't want to split a demon into legion and then you end up, walking away affected as well. So you want to make sure your boxes are checked all the way around it. Number 2, you're going to ask its name. It's not going to want to tell you its name. So if you say, so Bob, tell me, what's your name? You may get a look like, what? So Bob, tell me, what is your name? You're going to start seeing them get a little squirmy. Then you're onto something. And then so that's where you can press the issue, right? So, Bob is then reluctant. He's withholding. But if you press on and he, a lot of times they'll change the subject or say, I'm going to go to the bathroom. Let's get the check. Let's go. Or, hey, I got to go do something. Can we chat about this later? Like, no, you want to get that established. And if he goes, oh, yeah, my name's Bob, it's Richard or whatever Bob stands for, Robert. Say, oh, yeah, no, I know that name. But what's your real name? What's your real name? You keep asking that, and they're going to keep playing around the bush. So remember, whenever you're about to introduce the true name and you're about to really get some work going, this is when you prepare for a lashing out, right? Or some things to start going askew. So when you ask the true name and then you couple that with the true name, you're saying, Bob, by the authority vested in me by Yeshua, I'm asking your name. That's when they, at that point, they should be giving up the name. Or they're going to mumble it, or they're going to start drooling it, or they're going to start chewing their lip. They're really not going to be in a good spot. Because if you do that, you just put out, imagine having the hand sanitizer, but your hands, right, they're full of germs, and then you put that hand sanitizer, if you've seen all those germs just shriveling up and dying, they're freaking out, right, or slathering them in it. So, you can essentially, the holy names, right, Yahweh, Yahuwah, Yeshua, Yahushua, right, all these are in the same lane, and then you can kind of get you can fine tune it a little bit. You can even go a step further, right? On behalf of Yeshua, Hamashiach, or Yehoshua, the great deliverer, Yeshua, salvation of Yahweh, or even applying, some of the archangels, right? You could even apply if you're in a situation where Michael, right, may be the best archangel in that moment. I mean, that's not something you would know, I guess, but if you have that connection to the Ruach, that connection with me, that's the thing. If you think of it as a pyramid, and I know everybody sees a pyramid and they automatically assume occultic crap, which occultic really only means done in the dark. And again, it's all about what you do with the information you have. For me as the gardener, I don't look at a bag of fertilizer and say, oh, it's toxic and deadly. It's toxic and deadly to a fish, but I'm not a fish and I'm not going to eat it. I'm going to use it to fertilize my lawn. I can utilize the dark powers, the light powers, angels and demons. I mean, I don't hang out with demons. That's not my game. But I'm saying if I have a purpose and I need to drive something, they listen to me. I'm the only one they listen to. But so if you had the triangle, and if you put the very, very tippy top of that as the reservoir of Yahweh, right? And then it branches down on both sides and has a point on each side. The representation of Yahweh on earth is me and me. One is salvation, one is deliverance. So one is delivering and one is saving, right? And then bipartisan, right? We're drawing our power. I'm drawing my power from the spring, but I am at that top, right? So we are constantly in one. We don't leave, outside of that. So anyway, so whenever you're going to actually do your removal, one of your big things is you want to have a place for it to go. So a good idea would be to have an object and one that you can destroy. So you want to have some type of object that's not going to be very sentimental to the person because you're going to be destroying it, or you're going to be we had one that was taken out by boat a few miles off the coast and dropped off in water in a bucket full of cement. So never, ever, ever, ever will it be found. It's probably so far beneath the soot of the ocean that it's gone forever, right? Never be to surface. Um, Another thing, you don't want to burn consecrated items that have demon powers or possessed by demons in any way, because what you're basically doing is you're doing a binding. So the binding is where you're going to want to not only write out your binding, so you want to write it down, you want to pray over that, you want to make sure that you're connected. So before you go to actually lay hands and draw that out, prepare your heart, prepare your mind, because if you go to lay hands on a demon influenced person and you're not prayed up, you're not connected to me, you're not invoking the true holy names, you're going to be in some deep trouble, because if you go to touch that person, they're going to imprint on you. And if they imprint on you, then you are now in the same boat as Bob, but you most of the time are not even going to realize it. Depending on the level of demon, if you end up with one of the 72 primary demons, then you're going to have a really big issue, because those guys will leave big prints, and that's not so subtle. So you could have and that's another thing. People go around talking about tongues and stuff like that. Guys, like, you need to be so careful with this stuff, because you literally have Agaris, which is a language demon that can confound tongues. And when I say I can use whatever I want, I use that demon to confound the language from the Tower of Babel. So much like if you humans looked at your guns, right? You guys love your guns. You guys love to, polish your guns. Well, your gun is essentially death in a metal casing, right? In some cases, it's a sport, I guess. But at the end of the day, right, if you use it improperly or anything of that sort, that gun becomes, death essentially. So demons are kind of like spiritual bullets in a way. But if the spiritual bullets end up in the wrong person, or end up, trying to accomplish its own will, which they will, just like if, we had hundreds of these stray dogs, right? As long as those dogs are in the yard, they're behaving, they're eating, they're drinking, right? They're doing right, we're not going to mess with them. But if that dog breaks out of the fence and he's running around biting neighbors, well, we got to get the dog under control. So that's when you have demon issues. But so you have, again, just different types of demons. And then again, you want to ask its name. Now, there are some low-level demons that fall under Legion, and a lot of times these demons are simply manifested through ailment or through the sickness. But it will tell you its name. So you can try to write it out or try to sound it out the best you can. But anyway, make sure you have an item that you are able to cast into. I don't recommend something like that, right? That's kind of dumb. But you could do a casting technically into swine, and then you could cut the swine's throat, bind its front legs, back legs, and then you essentially you could burn it that way. Um, so that's one. Most people don't have a pig on hand, so you can again do it in objects. You could use things like a doll. You could technically use things like a ring, a piece of jewelry. Um, again, I would try to keep it simple. You don't want to overcomplicate it. We're not the Ghostbusters, so you don't need to go invest in some huge thing. Like, it's not like that. And one of the big tricks to this is you want to be authentic, and you never want to use it to show off. I ended up speaking with um, honestly, members of the Catholic Church some years ago now, because I was in the middle of dismembering some demons. I was doing some bindings. I was doing some castings, and I was trying to see if one of the local Catholic churches wanted to accept the 3 demons that I had bound. Well, to give you a clear understanding of the level of belief your Catholic Church has, they laughed at me. But then when I tried to give it to them, they said no. And the thing is, right? So they actually don't have belief in the very religion that they're touting, but yet they're only packaged with fear. Should tell you something, shouldn't it? If they actually have zero belief, but yet they are full of fear. It's not a priest or an organization. If I was a human, I would not want to find myself in that position personally. That would terrify me to no end. But anyway, so you want to make sure your vessel's clean. Make sure you have your rights prepared. I don't mean the rights in the King James Version or some crap you've heard off The Exorcist. Your rights are going to be, what are you, as the exorcist in this case, going to say to that demon of strength? What are you going to say? In the name of Yeshua, son of Yahweh, I pronounce you removed. I command you to enter into vessel of your choosing. You're using the name, right? Practice your rights for when your moment comes, that you're not only confident, but you're not going, hang on. And then you don't want to do that. Because remember, demons can smell you a mile away. And it's kind of like you're about to get into a confrontation. You've got your abilities, but they've got their abilities. And your abilities are going to be, it's almost like a one-sided mirror, right? If you're in those rooms, you know that there's a mirror on the wall and you can't see what's behind the mirror, but they can see through that mirror. So you're in that pretty bad position where you're in the room with the mirror side, so you can't see what's happening on the other side, but they can. So that's why when you enter the room, you want to be at that no BS level. That's when you want to be, we're not snacking on food. We're not talking about food. And that's another thing. Some of y'all drive me effing nuts is, you're about to get up and do a serious sermon about what God told you, but yet we're talking about the 49ers. Or we're like, yeah, your Aunt Becky, and then we met at the Walmart, and then I was buying socks, and I saw Jerry. And then 2 seconds later, you're like, and the Lord. You guys are so full of shit, you make me mad. But seriously, so when you're about to do the dance with an actual demon, essentially all this checklist, and that's a long checklist, guys. And at the same time, I'm saying this is going to be less than the 0.001% of you to even do this because it's not recommended. And guess what? I can and I will cast out demons, rearrange them. I mean, I can do whatever I want to do. But I can do it all from the comfort. I could do it anywhere I want because I can go in spirit and I can see who's infected with demons. If I want to reach down and snatch their little asses up, I most certainly can, and I do. And I'll say, you're going to relieve this person. You've tortured her way too much. Now this person's left as a barely alive vessel, and they think they've been under, a sickness curse for the last 4 years. There's been people that have been wheelchair bound for 5+ years, and I've snatched the demon, and they started walking the next day. It's literally a matter of getting around to doing that, and I do. So knowing the demon you're working, and then again knowing where you're going to bind it, and I mean, because I had nowhere to put the ones that I bound here just in the last 5 years or so. Again, but ultimately, they found their home elsewhere. And again, a lot of them can be retooled. So if we need certain things to come about, then you know we can take those and appropriate them accordingly. But again, that's not something that is like an active pursuance. I only say this emphasizing the careful checklist, the righteousness, having no sin. You're casting out effectively, and you're removing the entity and putting it into a binding state where it's not going to be able to exit. Now, the binding state, if you're going to use a debug box, that's a very preferred method for most of these guys. But let's say if they're Arabian in nature, you want to use like a deduct box. If they're going to be like, let's say, an Asian type of or a Far Eastern type of demon, because that's the thing, right? Their origins are going to mean something to them. A lot of these guys that you're going to be dealing with, at least on the chief side, they are the spirits of dead Nephilim. So a lot of them, they died in vain. They didn't have an opportunity to repent or to get clean. They died, they got caught with their pants down in their sin. So a lot of them that are just straight up malicious, like these guys are velociraptors in the spirit. They are nasty, nasty, nasty. They are going to wreak some serious havoc on your health, your family, your finances, your well-being, your psyche, whatever. Like these guys are gonna suck it out of you. Versus having a Nephilim spirit, for example. Like I know some people that have a YouTube channel, and I personally like their character. They actually were tapped several times, but because they're actually in love they're actually in love with their own influence, which they're demon possessed and they don't know it. The demon is Astaroth. So some of these psychic mediums, a lot of these spiritualists, the oneness people, right? Um, they're totally finding indulging in sin, even what they might call minor sin. But at the end of the day, they're in love with their abilities. They're in love with using their dark power. These guys are making money hand over fist, right? These guys are essentially, them and the demon are walking on sunshine, but it's not really sunshine. Like they're not. But that's the thing. So, and that's a very good way to understand spirituality. Like spiritually speaking, you would be fornicating with a malicious demon versus cleaning yourself, ridding yourself of them, and then accepting holiness, righteousness, goodness. Praying to the true powers in heaven. And again, all these things are to make sure that your line of communication is free, open, and clear. Right? You don't want to go and use a Google number as your primary number, right? You don't want to go, I'm going to use the name Jesus, and it's going to go into a queue line. And then whenever Yahweh has time, he's going to go through it and figure out who he likes, who he don't like. And at that point, like it's already a bad mood. So then I'm just like, don't even want to hear it. And that's my point, right? Because why am I going to go and invest time in these people that they can't obey? They can't understand. They can't obey. They're unwilling. They're especially unwilling to depart with those spirits they get. And I'm telling you, if you want to hang on to those spirits, you're going to stay where those spirits are going to go, right? And that is literally into the lake of fire, like unto destruction. And then you get to have the pleasure of being under that demon. Like that would be terrible. Imagine like the worst boss in the world, and you, just because your boss gives you a really good paycheck, well, shoot. Then when you die, imagine the boss you hate that gave you a good paycheck can no longer give you a paycheck, but it's still your boss. But now instead of being in the comfort of your home on earth and in your body, now you're a disembodied spirit just like them. So you know what you become? You basically become a demon just like them. And remember, it is hell being hungry and can't eat, or thirsty and can't drink, or having eyes, but you can't see anything good, right? So then they want to marry a human body so they can essentially experience these things. So that's what I mean. You really want to be on the lookout. and do it seriously. And in these situations, I would highly, highly encourage you, um, because it's too risky. And I can't really gauge how successful some of you could be in this venture. Um, I would much rather you direct those individuals, either directly to me, or if you're going to deal with them, please, shoot me an email, shoot me, a YouTube, I don't know, comment. I don't know. I have them all off anyway. So send a prayer, something, right? Pray about it. All I'm saying is I want to make sure that you guys are going to be carnally covered in that, because you could get yourself upside down really quick. Um, but yeah, so demons, we don't, you don't run away from them. You don't cower in fear. You don't get primitive and primordial, right? Where you're superstitious. Just, you got to look at it in the proper lens and understand what you're dealing with. That what you're dealing with behind there is a personality, right? It is a substance. And you also would be surprised that if you're dealing with really low ranking demons, or demons that a lot of times they're parasites, right? They're parasitic in nature. So you may have somebody who has an eating disorder that, let's say, for 30 years of their life, 40 years of their life, right? They maintained a pretty normal body weight, not like you're super skinny or you're super athletic. But then let's say, the person encountered some sin, they got sinned up, and next thing you know, they just kind of went over a cliff. And next thing you know, like, they are not only overeating, but they are just glumptious, right? That's a pretty good sign, actually, at least from where I see it. That could be influence of demons. That demon is a demon of gluttony, right? That is, and if you were to go, like what I can do, check the demon and go look at all his history. So just like you humans could go and check the laptop of somebody, and kind of see their history, I can do that with demons and spirits and humans and everything else. I can go and say, okay, I'm gonna check you out. I want to see, whoop, who've all have you been through, where all have you been, what have you done, and then you see a history, like, damn, okay, this demon just possesses people just to eat, like, and then you see, oh, okay, well, he was actually cut down in the flood. He didn't even get a chance to grow up to his full sense, and literally the demon, or the Nephilim, died with hunger on his mind. So then now he's introduced to a whole nother existence where he can't eat, he can't drink, and that's all he wants to do through the humans. So he really is like kind of passive, but he's like eating this person to death, right? We want to get that demon out of there and get her back on Weight Watchers. And that's another thing. There's even pastors that actually have that demon in particular. Now, just like water can't be cut, right? A demon can't be cut either, but they can be multiplied. So you can have my cup of Folgers, but I can have one coffee pot and pour 12 cups. Same thing. But we're going to take 5 and then we'll be back. And we're back. Okay, so we'll try to put a few more points on this and then kind of wrap it up. I don't like staying too much time on this because, like I said, I really, really hope this does not backfire. I don't want people, oh, please don't do this stuff, because you can inadvertently be causing a lot of headaches for me, and I don't want you entrapped in these things. Remember, the seducing spirits, a lot of those seducing spirits are not going to be big league guys. The seducing spirits, a lot of times, are actually the children of your ranking demons. And ranking demons, a lot of them, right? Like when we're talking fallen angels, right? You kind of have like misdemeanors, and then you have like felony. And by the way, just so everyone knows, felony, when it comes to like me, my house, disobedience is considered a felony. Right now, I'm really trying to keep a lot of the staunchiness away, just because mankind has been duped by so many of these guys on a larger scale than you can imagine. So a lot of you are guilty of this, but I don't want to see your flesh suffer, and I don't want to see your soul attached to entities, right? Ranking or lesser, whatever. It's just not something I desire, right? Because then I'm essentially giving a life force over to the adversary, and then you can be a servant of a demon in your afterlife. Like, that's not something you want to do, like, at all. Where was I going with this? All right. So obviously, our do's, our don'ts. Using the checklist to the best of your ability, knowledge. Um, Making sure we have the true names, right? All these things, but also the best way to ensure that you don't get these things, right? Because it's kind of like a parasite, right? It's very much sin attracts demons, and a lot of times, like if you are, let's just do a quick story, right? Let's say Bob picked up his demon because Bob had a great relationship with his wife. They've been married for 40 years. Well, one day, Bob takes an offer to go out for drinks with his boss. It starts off benign, but he didn't tell his wife he was going out for drinks. Withholding information as an untruth is also considered a lie. So, guess who gets snip of that? Because they went to a bar where there are lots of entities hanging out with their hosts. And then Bob, at that point, was clean. So the entities can look at Bob, and if you had spiritual eye goggles on and you're seeing 15 people in a bar, but you're seeing 60 entities all around, and you know it, right? The atmosphere itself can tell you. And then you have their influencing. So then they're kind of like, all right, Bob, we're gonna massage you a little bit. You're on our side. You didn't tell your wife you're going out for drinks. What else can Bob do? Then they're going to influence Bob to say, hey, you've been a moderate drinker your whole life. Why don't we really tie one on? They're massaging you. And then Bob ties one on. And then heavily, right? Then let's say this barfly, right? Let's say she's, her whole life is sin. Like, let's say maybe she was a hooker, right? She was a stripper. She's just sexually immoral as they come, right? She's Mrs. Fun, and she looks amazing, right? And if you're in lust, now you've engaged in lust. Now your heart is seeking something outside of your matrimony. Oh man, you are just singing songs, right? You guys sing songs in church to me, right? To the Trinity, or the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, which it is one, but point is I'm making is you guys sing songs about the Holy Family. When you are embracing sin, you're okaying sin. And that's another thing. Insert this. Like, you guys have got to be really fully understood and see clearly situations for what they are. You can't go around loving sin or even sinful people without a proper rebuke and without a proper righteous approach. Because if you go around trying to love all up on these people, you are okaying the sin, and you are essentially under this umbrella of multiple demons. And I mean, some people, there's no limit to how many fleas could be on a dog. The limit is if the fleas will eventually kill the dog, right? 1 or 2 fleas can be handled. 50 can be handled. 500, 5,000 is going to be, that dog is going to be on death's doorbed. That's how human beings are, and you see them all the time. So unfortunately, a lot of our homeless population are they're very susceptible to possession because of that fact, right? They started off their journey a lot of times with good intentions, but then, like I said, think of Bob. Then he went into that bar. He lied to his wife. Strike one. He pursued lust of his eyes. But let's say he didn't even fornicate. He didn't even touch her breasts. He didn't even insert anything into her orifices. No. But he committed it by just thinking it. Guys, when you've already thought of lust or you've thought of sins of the flesh, you might as well have already done it, right? It's already a sin. It's already in a repentant status. And if you are, Bob's now, he's drunk, he's having a good time, he's like, this is great. And the demons are like, this is great. So that's like the dog, right? It's going into areas of the yard the master didn't approve. The master said, do not go over there. There are fleas. And the dog doesn't know the wiser. Well, you guys aren't dogs. You're human beings, and you have a heart, a soul, and I'm trying to give you a spirit. If you can pull your heads out where the sun shines, And again, a lot of times, right, if you are having acceptance issues, which is going to probably be my next video, but acceptance issues of me, and again, right, they're like, God's supposed to be on the clouds, and I'm not supposed to see him, and I'm not supposed to engage with him because, well, that's just, humans are so stupid because you guys want to convince your children at a young age that Santa Claus, who drops off presents, is real, and you will lie your asses off and even try to fake prove the Santa's real with your little Santa tracker before you will let yourself, your family, or your kids understand, comprehend, and trust that God's on earth and I'm working. Think about that for a minute. You are so sinful and so under influence of the adversarial powers that you are more comfortable telling your children a false fat man in a red suit coming down a chimney bringing presents to good kids versus the creator. Like, I just want you to mull that over for a minute. Like, how insubordinate do you think mankind could really be? Because at this point, I don't think it could actually get any more insubordinate or disobedient. I mean, I think at this point, if I literally laid fire from edge to edge right now, boom, well, then this video wouldn't get out, one. But two, I'm losing a lot of investment, right? A lot of time, a lot of investment into people. And so again, I would be pooping on myself, which I don't want to do that. But that's what I mean, right? I would like a little bit of cooperation from mankind. It would be helpful because it does feel one-sided a lot of times, you know. And again, all this stuff in your head is just so disorganized. And it's like, if you guys could just get the damn screws straight, get this thing kosher, like, we're going to have no issues moving forward. But the issues that we're having are all in the human mind and the human syndrome. I digress. Okay. So Bob being in that bar, right? He became possessed, and he didn't realize it because obviously, if he realized it, he wouldn't have taken step one. But now, as Bob progresses, now he goes home, and instead of Bob thinking about his wonderful wife, instead of Bob thinking about seeing the grandkids next weekend, instead of Bob, practicing his song for church on Sunday, Bob is still having this image of lust in his mind. So now he's laying in bed at night next to his wife with images of lust. And in his mind, he's like, well, I didn't do it, so I'm okay. No, you're not okay, Bob. You are now under the influence of a demonium. You're in a yellow area, and that could take, a matter of days, weeks, months, rarely years until you get into the red. Then the demon continues to walk you through basically the passages or the rites, right? The demon then puts you through passage of rites, so they then have the rights over you. Because what's happening here is it's a relationship that's developing that you're not aware of. Bob isn't aware of it on a conscious level. The demon is presenting situations and reactions and feelings and emotions, which is what humans pursue at any level. You're all pursuing an emotional response, emotional reasoning, or something of that nature. So Bob is getting essentially negative behavior reinforcement by his own inner voice that's been replaced by demonic. Whereas the proper person would have the path, the walk with me, and any internal compass they're having or that internal dialogue is righteous Bob or his holy God. That's going to keep Bob out of the bar. It's going to keep Bob from cheating on his wife. It's going to keep Bob thinking about the good stuff of life, right? Practicing that song for Sunday service, looking forward to those grandkids and building the table with his eldest grandson. So that's the stark difference. And again, right, as brothers, as sons of the Most High, as my sons of heaven, you guys, you will / some of you do possess clean enough pipes and a righteous stance to be able to cast demons properly. But like I said, we do not want to be, you do not want to be these fake BSers. Again, they've never really encountered a demon because the demon hides from them. But number two, they're not using the true names, and so the demon, like I said, a lot of times, and if they are getting some activity that they can quote unquote prove, it's literally they're playing a game. Demon's playing a game with the person, because guess what happens? You know, the patient dies most of the time. Like the patient in the wheelchair, she dies. Bob eventually dies. And what does that look like? Again, these things could be happening inside of Bob, and the outside symptoms could be very subtle. But in the spirit, it's all too clear to see what's happening to Bob. So I'm not going to bring any artifacts out. I was going to, but I do not want to encourage this. I feel like, maybe even not posting this one just because it gives me a really bad feeling. I do not want anybody messing with demonium. I do not want anybody talking to spirits like that, which is another reason why I'm incarnate here on earth, because at this time, guys, it can't be left up to superstitious wills and whims. You can't use a fake name, get a flicker of light or energy or, something like that, and then claim your truth when, guys, if you are at essentially war with evil spirits, well, they don't win souls by being the version of Hollywood. They become your host, or you become their host by essentially giving you the sin that you want, right? You want to lust, they're going to give you an endless amount of legs to go in. If, you want, gluttony, right? And they're going to make sure you get every coupon for the Big Mac. Like, it's subtle. If you want to lead astray, they're going to send you so many damn people that you're going to be overflowing. But then if you have a true mind, but at that point you probably can't because you're under the influence. So what you're seeing being influenced by demonic activity and demons providing things for you, but in an unrighteous way, and in a way that, again, is not pleasing to me. It's not pleasing to the realms or heaven or any of the operatives therein. You're pleasing dark forces, and those are what I will be destroying, and all those that are with them. So it really does take a deep down soul search, and again, this even goes out to arrogant pastors, right? Let's see here. What is it? Hold on, I'm trying to get the name. Let's see. Oh. Yeah. So I'm not going to even go into the names because I don't want y'all to have them. But there are some that, for example, right, you have individuals that, these guys are top of the finance pile because, they're essentially able to get away with anything and everything they want because they have the covering of a demon, right? But these individuals, they're not penalized by using fake names. They're not under scrutiny because of the fake names. But the thing is, it creates one hell of a good mask, right? Think about a priest who wants to get close to children. And why do they want to get close to children, right? They essentially are putting in the spirit of Zephyr, and they're creating opportunities for their flesh to be able to pry off of children using a demonic spirit, right? But they're also able to walk around with a fake gun that looks real, maybe even smells real, but it's not, with Jesus and Jehovah and all this other nonsense. So guess what? And to the human eye, they're like, well, he loves Jesus. He loves Jehovah. He is not going to be possessed by no demons. 6 months later, now your daughter's in psychotherapy because she just got handled. Even worse, it's not worse. It's the same. They're all bad, or your daughter or your son or anybody, and then that's what I mean. And it's not like it's 1, 2, 10, 20, 50, 100, 2, 500,000. Guys, it is a massive, massive issue. Like, mark my words, so saith I, Yahweh the Lord. When I get get around to getting that, because I'm kind of going through my list here. When I get around to that, the fireworks are going to be very big, and the punishments are going to be very severe. So I'm just, heads up. So we're going to shift gears. I'm going to go into a more video getting off this track. Hopefully we don't have to revisit this, but again, I do encourage you guys, if you have any questions about this stuff, um, carnally, you're welcome to shoot me a message. Spiritually, of course, pray, all these things. I do respond. And hey, if you're even like, I can't tell my voice from your voice, or I used Jehovah and I heard you. Yeah, that's kind of what I mean. I'm the only power, I'm the only God on your earth anyway. So I can hear everybody. I'm not necessarily, if you're getting the name wrong because you're still ignorant or arrogant or whatever, but you genuinely have a need, I want to help fulfill that. But by doing that, I want to create a witness for my own name, the real name, and getting you on the truth side. Because if you continue to go against me, don't get me wrong, I don't want to lose anybody to demons. But at the same time, if you continue to rebuke me, my presence, and all that I'm doing, I'll give you what you want. I'll send them right there. I'll give them to you. I'll let you take a bath in them. And you can laugh and haughty your way all the way down to hell when they go there. And then guess what? When I go downstairs and I'm checking locks and I'm stepping on toes and I'm pulling them and I'm poking them and you'll be right there with them. So choose wisely. All right, guys. Till next video.